The stars looked peaceful through the viewing window of the horizon's edge. Captain Marcus Blake stood on the bridge, watching the distant galaxies while his crew worked at their stations. Everything seemed normal. It was supposed to be another routine day of mapping new sectors and recording data for Earth's Exploration Division. Lieutenant Amy Carson sat at her communications console, monitoring the usual background chatter of galactic transmissions. Ships passing by, trading posts advertising their goods, the occasional distress beacon from a broken-down freighter. Nothing unusual. She was about to take her coffee break when something strange appeared on her screen. "Captain, I'm picking up a signal," Amy said, adjusting her headset. "It's weak, but it's definitely a distress call." Marcus walked over to her station. "Where's it coming from?" "Sigma-7, that's the Velen colony world." Amy's fingers moved quickly across her keyboard, trying to strengthen the signal. "Sir, this doesn't look good. The message is marked as urgent." "Put it through," Marcus ordered. The main screen flickered to life. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go silent. The image was shaky, clearly recorded by someone running or hiding. Buildings were burning in the background. The camera showed bodies lying in the streets. Velen civilians, their blue skin covered in dust and blood, were being herded into large compounds by armored soldiers. A Velen woman appeared on screen, her face streaked with tears. "This is Sigma-7. We are under attack." The Krell came without warning. "They said we violated their territorial claims. They're killing everyone. Please, someone help us. They're killing the children." The camera shook violently. Weapons fire echoed in the background. The woman screamed and the camera dropped. For a moment, all they could see was the ground. Then a small hand reached toward the camera. A child's hand. The screen went black. Marcus felt his stomach turn. He had met the Velens before. They were peaceful traders, scientists, artists. They had no military to speak of. They welcomed everyone with open arms. And now they were being slaughtered. "Get me more information," Marcus told his crew. "I want to know everything about what's happening there." Commander Linda Grant, his second-in-command, worked alongside Amy to pull up more data. What they found was worse than they imagined. The Krell Dominion had sent a full military fleet to Sigma-7, satellite. Imagery showed massive weapons being used on population centers. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. "How many Velens lived on that planet?" Marcus asked quietly. 3 million, Linda answered. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "Sir, according to these readings, the Krell have been conducting operations there for 6 days. The death toll is already over 1 million. Marcus turned to his tactical officer. "How long to reach Sigma-7? 2 weeks at maximum speed, sir." "It'll be over by then," Linda said. "The Krell are moving systematically through every city. They'll have eliminated the entire population within days." Marcus clenched his fists. "Contact the Galactic Council. Send them everything we have. They need to intervene now." Amy opened a priority channel to Council Station, the massive space station where all the galactic species met to discuss politics and maintain peace. Earth's ambassador there was Victor Hayes, a career diplomat who had spent years building relationships with other species. The response came back within an hour. Victor's face appeared on screen and he looked tired. "Captain Blake, I've received your transmission and presented it to the Council." "What did they say?" Marcus demanded. "Are they sending peacekeepers? A fleet?" Victor sighed. "The Council is calling for an emergency session to discuss the matter. They want to form a committee to investigate the territorial dispute between the Krell and the Velens." "A committee?" Linda stepped forward, her face red with anger. "Ambassador, we sent you footage of genocide. Children are dying right now." "I know, Commander." "I know," Victor rubbed his eyes. "But the Council moves slowly. There are protocols, procedures. The Krell are claiming the Velens violated ancient territorial boundaries. Other species are worried about setting a precedent by interfering." Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. The Velens don't even have weapons. What threat could they possibly pose? "The Council doesn't see it that way," Victor explained. The Krell Dominion is one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. Many species are afraid of them. They don't want to risk war, so they'll just let this happen? Amy's voice cracked. They'll let 3 million people die? Victor looked down. I'm pushing as hard as I can, Captain. But you need to understand the political reality here. The Council operates on consensus. If enough species object to intervention, nothing will happen. Marcus stared at the screen. He thought about the child's hand reaching for the camera. He thought about the Velen woman's screams. He thought about Earth joining the Galactic Council 20 years ago, hoping to be part of a civilized community of species working together for peace. It was all a lie. Ambassador Hayes, Marcus said slowly, I'm sending you additional data. Real-time satellite feeds, intercepted Krell military communications, everything. Make sure every species on that council sees what's really happening. Make them watch. I will, Captain, but I can't promise it will change anything. The transmission ended. The bridge was quiet. Marcus looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. Sir, Linda said carefully, what do we do? Marcus walked back to the viewing window. Out there, somewhere among those stars, people were dying while politicians debated and made excuses. The Galactic Council, the organization Earth had trusted to maintain peace and justice, was going to let it happen. He had a choice to make. Follow protocol, file reports, and wait for the Council to act. Or do something else. Get me a direct line to Earth Command, Marcus said. Priority Alpha encryption? Sir, that's only used for military emergencies, Amy pointed out. I know. Marcus turned to face his crew. Because that's what this is. An emergency. And we're done waiting for the Council to pretend they care. Linda understood immediately. You're going to ask Earth to intervene directly. The Council had their chance, Marcus said. They failed. Now let's see if humanity can do better. Within minutes, the encrypted channel opened. Marcus began recording his message to Earth's military command. He included all the evidence, all the footage, everything they had gathered. He explained the Council's refusal to act. Then he added his recommendation. We cannot stand by and watch this happen. If the Galactic Council won't stop the Krell, then Earth must. I request immediate military deployment to the Sigma-7 sector. We may not arrive in time to save the Velens, but we can make sure the Krell pay for what they've done. He sent the message and waited. The response would take hours to arrive due to the distance. But Marcus knew Earth would answer. He knew his people. Humanity had tried playing by the galaxy's rules. They had been peaceful, diplomatic, civilized. That was about to change. The 72-hour deadline hung over the galaxy like a storm cloud. Everyone was watching to see what humanity would do. The Krell homeworld sat beneath its shield, confident in their defenses. The Galactic Council held emergency meetings every few hours. And Earth's fleet waited in orbit, patient and cold. President Helen Carter received daily reports from Admiral Clare. The blockade was holding perfectly. No ships could reach the planet. No communications could get through the human jamming. The Krell homeworld was completely isolated. They still haven't responded to our demand? Helen asked during a secure call. They're calling it blackmail, Claire replied. They say they won't negotiate with barbarians. Helen almost laughed at that. Barbarians, is that what we are now? According to the entire galaxy, yes, General Nathan said. He was reviewing the diplomatic reports. 43 species have formally condemned our actions. 21 are calling for economic sanctions. The Council wants to declare us a rogue state. Let them, Helen said. She was tired of caring what the Council thought. Secretary Margaret entered the room carrying more reports. The situation is getting complicated. Some smaller species are quietly reaching out to us. Apparently they're impressed that we actually did something about the Krell. Which species? Helen asked. Margaret listed several names. They were all minor powers, species that had been bullied by larger empires for centuries. They're not saying it publicly, but privately they're asking if Earth would be willing to discuss mutual defense agreements. General Nathan looked up sharply. They want us as allies? They want someone who will actually protect them, Margaret corrected. The council failed to do that. Now they're looking for alternatives. Helen considered this. It made sense. The galaxy ran on fear. The strong did what they wanted and the weak suffered. The council was supposed to protect the weak, but in reality it just enabled the strong. Humanity had changed that equation. Tell them we'll talk after we finish with the Krell, Helen decided. But make it clear, Earth will not tolerate aggression against peaceful species. If they want our protection, they'll get it. But they'll also get our standards. Meanwhile, Commander Lisa Hunt remained at Council Station, watching the political chaos unfold. The council chamber was in constant session now. Representatives argued about what to do about humanity. Councilor Zoraka was leading the charge for sanctions. Earth must be punished for their lawless behavior. They have rejected all civilized norms. They are a danger to galactic stability. They did what you refused to do, a small voice said from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned. The speaker was Ambassador Kell, representative of the Tarian people. The Tarians were a minor species, barely noticed in council politics. Kell rarely spoke in sessions. Excuse me, Zoraka said. The humans did what the council refused to do, Kell repeated, standing up. They stopped the Krell. They avenged the Velans. They're doing the council's job. They're breaking the law. Another counselor shouted. Whose law? Kell asked. The same law that let the Velans die? The same law that protects powerful species while weak ones suffer? Perhaps it's a bad law. The chamber erupted in argument. Lisa watched with interest. This was the first time any species had openly defended humanity's actions in the council. After the session, Kell approached Lisa privately. My people want you to know that we support what Earth is doing. We cannot say it publicly without risking Krell retaliation. But privately, many species are grateful someone finally stood up to them. Why can't you say it publicly? Lisa asked. Because we're afraid, Kell admitted. The Krell are powerful. Without the Council's protection, we're vulnerable. The Council didn't protect the Velans, exactly, Kell looked around nervously. That's why some of us are hoping Earth wins. Maybe then things will change. Lisa reported this conversation back to Earth. It confirmed what Margaret had said. The galaxy's power structure was shifting. Humanity's actions, brutal as they were, had broken something important. The illusion that the Council could maintain peace and justice. Now everyone had to face reality. The Council was weak. Its laws were meaningless. Only power mattered. And right now, humanity had the power. The deadline approached. 60 hours. 48 hours? 24 hours? The Krell leadership remained defiant. They broadcast messages to other species, trying to rally support. Some species condemned Earth's actions, but none sent military aid to the Krell. Everyone was too afraid of what humanity might do next. Admiral Claire counted down the final hours aboard the Retribution. Her science team had been working non-stop on the plan. Captain Margaret Stone commanded the scientific vessel Discovery, which had been positioning itself near the Krell system's sun. All preparations complete, Margaret reported. The stellar destabilizer is ready. What exactly will this do? One of the junior officers asked nervously. Claire explained. The device will trigger controlled solar flares. The flares will be directed at the Krell homeworld. Their shield will protect them from the radiation and heat. But the shield technology interacts with solar radiation in interesting ways. It creates a resonance effect, Margaret added. The more radiation hits the shield, the hotter it gets inside. The shield won't fail, but everything underneath it will slowly cook. The officer looked sick. That's horrifying. So was Sigma-7, Claire said coldly. When the deadline expired, the Krell sent one final message. We do not surrender to terrorists. Do your worst, humans. Our shield will protect us. So be it, Claire said. She opened the channel to Margaret. Captain Stone, you are authorized to activate the stellar destabilizer. Acknowledged, Admiral. Beginning activation sequence. The Discovery moved into position near the Krell sun. The device it deployed looked small against the massive star, just a tiny piece of technology floating in space. But when it activated, the effects were immediate and dramatic. The sun's surface rippled. Massive flares erupted, larger than planets, directed by the device's magnetic fields. The flares shot across the system straight toward the Krell homeworld. The planetary shield held as designed. The radiation and heat were blocked. But inside the shield, things began to change. Temperature readings started climbing. Slowly at first, then faster. The shield was doing its job too well, trapping heat instead of letting it dissipate. Within 6 hours, the surface temperature of the Krell homeworld had risen by 5 degrees. Within 12 hours, 10 degrees. The planet's climate control systems were struggling to compensate. Claire broadcast another message. Your shield is working perfectly. Unfortunately for you, that's the problem. You can lower the shield and surrender the war criminals we want, or you can keep it up and watch your planet become an oven. Your choice. The Krell tried to shut down the stellar destabilizer. They sent ships to destroy the Discovery, but human fighters intercepted them all. They tried to modify their shield to release heat. Their engineers discovered the human device was specifically designed to prevent that. They were trapped by their own technology. The temperature kept rising. 15 degrees? 20 degrees? The Krell population was already feeling the effects. Power grids were overloading trying to run cooling systems. Water supplies were running low. The Krell leadership held out for 3 more hours. Then finally they broke. We surrender, came the transmission. Stop the device. We'll give you what you want. Claire didn't trust them. Lower your shield first. Transfer the individuals responsible for Sigma-7 to our custody. Then we'll consider stopping. You're killing millions of people. You killed 3 million Velans in a week, Claire reminded them. We've been running this device for less than a day, but fine. We'll stop the device once we have the war criminals in custody. Not before. The Krell had no choice. The shield came down. The temperature began to stabilize, and within an hour, a small shuttle launched from the planet's surface carrying 15 Krell military and political leaders. These were the individuals who had ordered the Sigma-7 genocide. Captain Marcus Blake personally took custody of the prisoners. He looked at them with cold contempt. You're going to face trial for what you did? We followed our laws, one of the Krell leaders said. The Velans violated our territory. We had every right. 3 million dead, Marcus interrupted. 3 million civilians. Men, women, children, you had no right. The trials were held aboard the Retribution. Admiral Clare presided. The proceedings were brief and brutal. The evidence was overwhelming. The Krell had documented everything themselves, proud of their efficiency. Each defendant was found guilty of genocide. The sentences were carried out immediately. By human firing squad, Commander Lisa Hunt watched the executions via video feed from Council Station. She felt nothing, no satisfaction, no guilt. Just cold acceptance that justice, real justice, sometimes required violence. The galaxy reacted with horror and anger. The Galactic Council formally condemned the executions. 47 species called it murder. They said humans had abandoned all pretense of civilization. President Helen addressed these accusations in a broadcast to the entire galaxy. She stood in Earth's capital, the whole world behind her. We sought peace, Helen said. We joined the Galactic Council hoping to be part of a civilized community. We followed your laws, respected your customs, trusted your promises. And when our friends needed help, when the emergency meeting room in Earth's capital was filled with the most powerful people in human government. President Helen Carter sat at the head of the long table, her face illuminated by the holographic displays floating in the air. She had watched the footage from Sigma-7 3 times now. Each time made her angrier. General Nathan Cross stood near the displays, pointing at tactical maps of Krell territory. He was a tall man with gray hair and hard eyes that had seen too many wars. Next to him, Admiral Claire Bennett reviewed naval deployment options. She commanded Earth's space fleet, and right now she looked ready to launch every ship they had. The Velan colony is gone, Nathan reported. Our long-range scans confirm it? The Krell finished their operation 2 days ago. 3 million dead in just over a week. Helen closed her eyes. 3 million lives, gone, because the Galactic Council was too afraid to act. What's the Council's official position? She asked. They're still debating, answered Secretary of State Margaret Cole. Ambassador Hayes says they formed 3 committees to study the issue. They want to send observers to investigate the territorial dispute. They're talking about sanctions against the Krell, maybe in 6 months. 6 months, Helen repeated. The words tasted bitter. 3 million people are dead and they want to study it. They're cowards, Admiral Clare said bluntly. Every species on that council knew what was happening. They had the power to stop it. They chose not to. Helen stood up and walked to the window. She could see the city below, millions of humans going about their lives. They trusted their government to protect them. They trusted the Galactic Council to maintain peace in the galaxy. That trust was broken now. We joined the Council 20 years ago, Helen said. We agreed to follow their laws. We decommissioned our heavy weapons. We limited our fleet size. We tried to be good members of the galactic community. She turned back to face the room. And what did it get us? We watched our friends get slaughtered while politicians made excuses. General Nathan pulled up another display. Madam President, I've prepared several military options. We can deploy our fleet to Krell space within 3 weeks. However, I need to remind you that military action without Council approval violates the Colonial Defense Treaty we signed. The treaty also says the Council will protect member species from aggression, Helen shot back. They failed. The treaty is meaningless. Margaret leaned forward. If we act unilaterally, the Council will condemn us. Other species might see us as warmongers. We could lose all the diplomatic progress we've made. Diplomatic progress? Admiral Clare's voice rose. What progress? We played by their rules and our allies died. I say we're done playing. The room erupted in discussion. Some argued for caution, for working within the system. Others wanted immediate action. Helen listened to them all, but her mind was already made up. She had seen the child's hand reaching for the camera. She couldn't unsee it. General Cross? Helen said, her voice cutting through the debate. What would a military operation against the Krell look like? Nathan brought up detailed plans. The Krell Dominion has approximately 200 warships spread across 15 sectors. Their military doctrine relies on overwhelming firepower and intimidation. They're used to species backing down. They've never fought humans, Claire added. Not in a real war. How long to mobilize our forces? Helen asked. 72 hours for the first fleet, Claire answered. 1 week for full mobilization. We'll need to recall reserve units and activate the shipyards. Helen nodded slowly. Do it. I want our fleet ready to deploy immediately. Madam President, Margaret protested. We need to think about this. Once we start down this path, there's no going back. You're right, Helen agreed. There isn't, but we're going anyway. She activated the main communication system. Within seconds, she was connected to every human military base, every ship, every outpost across Earth's territory. This is President Carter. I'm issuing a general mobilization order. All military personnel are to report to their stations immediately. All reserve units are activated. All shipyards are to begin emergency production protocols. The room went silent. General Nathan and Admiral Clare exchanged glances. This was really happening. Helen continued her broadcast. 20 years ago, we joined the Galactic Council believing it represented the best of civilized society. We believed in their laws, their principles, their promises of peace and justice. We were wrong. She pulled up the footage from Sigma 7 and broadcast it to every human in the military. Let them see. Let them know why. The Velen people were our friends and trading partners. They were peaceful, kind, and welcoming. The Krell Dominion exterminated them while the Council watched and did nothing. 3 million innocent lives were lost because the galaxy's so-called peacekeepers were too afraid to act. Helen's voice hardened. Earth is withdrawing from the Galactic Council effective immediately. We will no longer abide by their laws or recognize their authority. The Krell Dominion will answer for what they did. Not to the Council, to us. Admiral Claire was already on her feet, issuing orders to her fleet commanders. General Nathan contacted the reserve units. Within minutes, Earth's military machine was waking up. Colonel Jack Murphy, Earth's military liaison to the Council, received his orders directly from Helen. Get to Council Station. Deliver our withdrawal notice in person. Then get our people out of there. Jack arrived at Council Station 12 hours later. The massive structure housed representatives from 73 different species. He walked through the grand halls where he had once attended diplomatic functions and cultural exchanges. Now it all felt hollow. He found the council chamber where the main assembly was meeting. They were still debating sanctions against the Krell, still talking. Always talking. Jack walked straight to the center podium, interrupting the counselor who was speaking. Security moved to stop him, but he showed his diplomatic credentials. I bring a message from Earth, Jack announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. President Carter has ordered the immediate withdrawal of humanity from the Galactic Council. We no longer recognize this body's authority. The chamber exploded in protest. Species representatives shouted questions and objections. Jack ignored them all. Furthermore, he continued, Earth will be taking direct military action against the Krell Dominion in response to their genocide of the Velen people. We do not ask for council approval. We do not seek council permission. We are informing you as a courtesy. Councilor Zaraka, a tall alien with purple skin and too many eyes, stood up. This is outrageous. You cannot take military action without council approval. It violates every treaty, every law we have established. Jack looked at him coldly. You had laws against genocide too. You chose not to enforce them. The situation with the Velens was complicated, another counselor argued. There were territorial disputes, legal questions. 3 million dead is not complicated, Jack interrupted. It's murder. And you did nothing. You cannot simply abandon centuries of diplomatic protocol, Zora Letters K insisted. Humanity agreed to abide by civilized standards of conduct. Jack smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We're done pretending to be civilized. You had your chance to stop the Krell, you failed. Now we'll handle it our way. He turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving chaos behind him. Representatives were already sending urgent messages to their homeworlds. Everyone was asking the same question: would humanity really go to war? Back on Earth, the answer was becoming clear. Shipyards that had been building cargo vessels and research ships were retooling for warship production. Military bases were filling up with recalled soldiers. Lieutenant Paul Sanders and Sergeant Kate Morrison, who had been running training exercises just days before, now found themselves preparing for actual combat. In storage facilities across Earth's solar system. Weapons that hadn't been used in decades were brought back online. Humanity had agreed to decommission certain weapons when they joined the Council. Things the other species found too brutal, too effective, too scary. Those weapons were being loaded onto ships now. President Helen watched the mobilization reports coming in. Within a week, Earth would have the largest military force it had fielded in 50 years. The First Fleet was almost ready to deploy under Admiral Claire's command. They're calling us warmongers, Margaret reported, reading the galactic news feeds. Some species are talking about declaring us a rogue state. Let them talk, Helen said. We're not doing this for their approval. General Nathan entered the room. Madam President, the fleet is ready. Admiral Bennett requests permission to depart. Helen nodded. Tell her to make an example of the Krell, show the galaxy what happens when you commit genocide. Yes, ma'am. Nathan paused. For what it's worth, I think we're doing the right thing. History will judge that, Helen replied. But I can live with being history's villain if it means we stopped being cowards. The First Fleet launched from Earth orbit 3 days after the mobilization order. 50 warships, the largest human military formation in decades, heading straight for Krell territory. The galaxy watched and waited. Humanity was done playing by the rules. The First Fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Krell space. Admiral Claire Bennett stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Retribution. watching the tactical displays light up with enemy contacts. 50 human warships against the might of the Krell Dominion. The numbers didn't look good on paper, but Claire wasn't worried about numbers. All ships, battle stations, she ordered. Deploy combat formations. The fleet spread out, each ship taking its assigned position. Captain Marcus Blake's Horizon's Edge moved to the front as the reconnaissance vessel. His job was to scout ahead and identify targets. Lieutenant Ryan Foster worked the tactical sensors. Admiral, I'm reading 12 Krell military stations in this sector. 47 warships, various classes. They're moving to intercept us. Let them come, Claire said. The Krell response was predictable. A transmission came through, voice only. The Krell commander sounded bored, like this was routine. Human vessels, you have entered Krell Dominion territory without authorization. Reverse course immediately or you will be destroyed. Claire opened the channel. This is Admiral Bennett of the Earth Fleet. We're here about Sigma 7. Sigma 7 was an internal matter. The Krell replied. It does not concern you. Leave now, and we will forget this violation. We're not leaving. There was a pause. The Krell commander seemed confused. Species didn't usually refuse them. You are making a grave mistake. The Krell Dominion does not tolerate aggression. Surrender your ships, and your crew will be treated according to the laws of war. Claire almost laughed. Laws of war? From species that had just committed genocide? No, she said simply. Then you will die. The transmission cut off. The Krell warships accelerated toward the human fleet. Claire watched them come, noting their formation. They moved in standard attack patterns, the kind taught in military academies across the galaxy. Proper, organized, civilized warfare, humanity had forgotten how to fight that way a long time ago. All ships weapons free, Claire ordered. No rules of engagement. No mercy, the Krell expected a traditional space battle. Ships facing each other, exchanging fire, following the accepted protocols of combat. They expected humans to try to disable their vessels, to take prisoners, to respect the customs of civilized species. They were wrong about everything. The first wave of human attack wasn't warships at all. It was drones. Thousands of small, fast, unmanned craft that the Krell sensors barely detected. The drones didn't try to fight the Krell ships. They just flew straight at them and exploded, kamikaze attacks. A concept the galaxy thought was barbaric. 3 Krell cruisers were crippled in the first 30 seconds. What are they doing? The Krell commander shouted over the open channel. This is not proper combat. Claire smiled coldly. We don't do proper. The human warships opened fire next. But they didn't aim for the Krell ships' weapons or engines like they were supposed to. They targeted life support systems, command decks, power cores. Every shot was meant to kill. Commander Linda Grant led a squadron of fighters into the chaos. Her pilots flew in patterns that made no sense according to standard tactics. They used the debris from destroyed Krell ships as cover. They fired missiles that deployed electromagnetic pulses, disabling entire groups of enemy vessels at once. This is madness, a Krell captain screamed. You're violating every rule of warfare. You killed 3 million civilians, Linda responded. You don't get to talk about rules. Major Chris Allen commanded the boarding teams. When a Krell station's shields went down, he didn't send troops to capture it. He sent bombs. Nuclear charges planted on critical systems. The station didn't surrender. It exploded. The Krell were in full panic now. They tried to regroup, to form defensive positions. But human ships were everywhere, attacking from angles that shouldn't be possible. The Krell had superior shields and armor. It didn't matter. Human weapons found weaknesses, exploited them ruthlessly. A Krell battleship attempted to surrender, broadcasting the standard white flag signal on all frequencies. Captain Isaac Price commanded the nearest human vessel. Surrender accepted? His communications officer asked. Denied, Isaac said flatly. Continue firing. Sir, they're surrendering? Galactic law requires... I don't care about galactic law, Isaac interrupted. The Velans tried to surrender too. Remember what happened to them? His ship's weapons reduced the Krell battleship to scrap metal. Admiral, Claire watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. The Krell were better equipped, better armored, supposedly more experienced. But they were losing, badly, because they were fighting by rules that humans had abandoned. Ma'am. The Krell are trying to retreat, Ryan reported from the horizon's edge. Don't let them, Claire ordered. Pursue and destroy. The human fleet chased down the fleeing Krell ships. Within 2 hours, the entire Krell defensive force in the sector was eliminated. 12 military stations destroyed. 47 warships reduced to wreckage. Human casualties, minimal, but Claire wasn't done. She pulled up the star charts. Plot a course to the next Krell sector. We're going deeper. Admiral, one of her officers said carefully, our orders were to respond to Sigma 7. We've done that. Shouldn't we wait for new orders from Earth? Our orders are to make the Krell pay, Claire corrected. And we're just getting started. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, representatives screaming at each other. Humanity had just violated every treaty, every agreement, every principle of civilized warfare. More importantly, they had won. Decisively. Commander Lisa Hunt was sent to Council Station as Earth's temporary representative. She wasn't a diplomat. She was a military officer with no patience for politics. President Helen had chosen her specifically for that reason. Lisa walked into the council chamber carrying a datapad. The room fell silent as she approached the center podium. 73 species representatives stared at her. You called this emergency session to discuss humanity's actions, Lisa said. So let's discuss them. She activated her datapad. The holographic display above the chamber filled with footage from Sigma 7, the genocide, the killing, the children. This is what the Krell did, Lisa said. Her voice was cold and hard. 3 million people murdered while you sat here and debated. You saw this. Every one of you. And you did nothing. Counselor Zaraka stood up. The situation was complex. We needed time to investigate. 3 million dead in 1 week and you needed more time? Lisa cut him off. How much time? How many more had to die before you acted? The council must consider all perspectives, another representative argued. We cannot simply rush to war every time there's a conflict. This wasn't a conflict, Lisa said. This was genocide. And the only perspective that matters is that you failed to stop it. She switched the display to show footage from the recent battle. Krell ships exploding. Stations destroyed. The council members watched, many looking sick. This is what happens when you rely on laws without enforcement, Lisa continued. The Krell ignored your laws. They killed our friends. Now Earth is enforcing consequences. By becoming butchers yourselves? Zaraka demanded. You denied surrender. You destroyed medical ships. You violated every principle of civilized warfare. The Velans were civilized, Lisa replied. It got them killed. We're done being civilized. We're being effective. She looked around the chamber. Here's Earth's position. We will not stop our military operations against the Krell. We will not negotiate. We will not compromise. The Krell leadership responsible for Sigma 7 will be brought to justice. Human justice. This is unacceptable, several counselors shouted. Then try to stop us, Lisa challenged. Send your own fleets? Enforce your laws. Or sit here and talk while we do what you were too afraid to do. She left the chamber in chaos. Back in Krell space. Admiral Claire's fleet had pushed 3 sectors deeper into enemy territory. The Krell military was scrambling to respond, pulling ships from across their empire. But everywhere they gathered forces, humans destroyed them. The tactics were brutal and efficient. No honor, no glory. Just cold, calculated destruction. Colonel Daniel Wright led the assault on the Krell homeworld's outer defenses. The planet was protected by a legendary energy shield, technology that had never been penetrated in 1,000 years. Daniel didn't try to break through it. Instead, his ships destroyed every supply depot, every space station, every ship in orbit. Then they positioned themselves in a blockade pattern. "Cut all communications to the surface," he ordered. "Nothing gets in or out." The Krell homeworld was now isolated under its own shield. Trapped. Admiral Claire broadcast a message to the planet. "You have 72 hours to surrender the individuals responsible for ordering the Sigma-7 genocide. If you comply, we will accept their surrender and withdraw. If you refuse, we will demonstrate exactly why humans used to be feared before we joined your council." The Krell leadership responded with defiance. "We do not negotiate with terrorists. You cannot breach our shield. We are impregnable." Claire smiled. They still didn't understand. "We don't need to breach your shield," she said. "We just need to make you wish we would." She cut the transmission and looked at her officers. 72 hours. Then we show them what human ingenuity really means. The countdown began. 3 months after the Krell executions, Earth had become the most talked-about species in the galaxy. The Galactic Council had officially condemned humanity and expelled them from membership. Economic sanctions were proposed but never implemented because too many species quietly opposed them. President Helen Carter sat in her office reviewing diplomatic reports. The situation was complicated but not unexpected. The galaxy was splitting into factions. Some species aligned with the Council, condemning Earth's actions and calling for isolation. Others were quietly reaching out to humanity, looking for new alliances. General Nathan entered with the latest military updates. "The fleet is rotating back home. Admiral Claire requests permission to begin training exercises for new tactics." "Approved," Helen said. "What's the status of our shipyard expansion?" "Ahead of schedule," Nathan reported. "We'll have production capacity for 3 new fleets within the year. If we need them, we'll need them," Helen said with certainty. The Krell situation showed the galaxy that humans are willing to fight. Some species will see that as a threat. Others will see it as an opportunity. She was right. Over the past weeks, 17 species had formally approached Earth about defense agreements. They were small nations, minor powers that had spent centuries being pushed around by larger empires. Secretary Margaret handled most of the diplomatic negotiations. She met with each species individually, explaining Earth's terms. "We'll defend you against aggression, but you have to agree to our standards. No genocide. No slavery. No oppression. If you commit atrocities, we'll turn on you just as quickly as we turned on the Krell." Some species balked at these conditions. They wanted Earth's military protection without Earth's moral judgment. Margaret sent them away. "We're not mercenaries. We're building something better than the Council. Take it or leave it." Most took it. The Velen survivors presented a unique challenge. About 200,000 had escaped Sigma-7 before the final massacres. They were scattered across refugee camps in neutral territory, traumatized and homeless. Captain Marcus Blake received new orders. His ship, the Horizon's Edge, would lead a humanitarian mission to relocate the Velen survivors to a protected world. Earth had purchased a suitable planet from a desperate species that needed credits more than territory. Marcus found the task both meaningful and painful. He had been the first to discover the Sigma-7 genocide. Now he would help the survivors start over. The refugee camps were heartbreaking. Velen families living in temporary shelters, children who had watched their parents die, adults who had lost everything. Lieutenant Amy Carson helped coordinate the relocation efforts and found herself fighting back tears constantly. How do they even go on? Amy asked Marcus one night. They were watching Velen children play in one of the camps, trying to find joy despite everything. "Because they have to," Marcus said. "Because giving up would mean the Krell won." The relocation took 6 weeks. The new planet was designated Haven, and Earth committed to protecting it with a permanent military presence. 2 full battle groups would patrol the system indefinitely. The Velen elders met with Marcus before the humans departed. "We cannot repay you for what you've done," their leader said. "You didn't have to help us. The Council abandoned us, but Earth fought for us." "We should have fought sooner," Marcus replied, thinking of the 3 million who died. "We should have stopped it before it started." You stopped it from continuing, the elder said gently. That matters too. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was struggling with its own crisis. The human withdrawal had exposed fundamental weaknesses in their system. Species were openly questioning the Council's effectiveness. If the Council couldn't prevent genocide, what was it good for? Commander Lisa Hunt remained at Council Station as an observer. Earth wasn't a member anymore, but they wanted someone there to monitor developments. Lisa watched the Council sessions with dark amusement. They're falling apart, she reported to President Helen during one of their calls. Half the species want to reform the Council to make it more effective. The other half are defending the status quo. Any progress? Helen asked. None. They've been debating for 3 months and haven't agreed on anything. Helen wasn't surprised. The Council moved slowly by design. It was built for stability, not justice, but the galaxy didn't need stability anymore. It needed change. That change came from an unexpected direction. The Tarian people, represented by Ambassador Kell, formally withdrew from the Galactic Council and requested a defense alliance with Earth. They were the first species to make the jump publicly, Counselor. Zoraka tried to convince them to stay. You're making a mistake. Humanity is dangerous. They're violent and unpredictable. They're also effective, Kell replied. The Tarians have faced 3 invasion attempts in the last century. The Council condemned each one and did nothing to help us. We're done waiting for help that never comes. Within a week, 3 more species followed the Tarians' example. Then 5 more. Then 10. The Council was bleeding members. President Helen watched the exodus with satisfaction. They're building something new. Good. What are we building? Margaret asked. This isn't the Galactic Council. What is it? Helen thought about that. Something better. Something that actually works. She called together representatives from the 23 species that had aligned with Earth. The meeting was held in orbit around Earth. Aboard a newly constructed space station called Unity, the representatives came from all kinds of species. Some were humanoid, others completely alien. But they all shared one thing. They were tired of being victims. Helen addressed them all. The Galactic Council was supposed to maintain peace and protect the weak. It failed. We're here because we believe in a better way. She outlined Earth's proposal. A new organization, a coalition of species committed to actual enforcement of peace. No endless debates. No committees to study obvious problems. When a member was threatened, the coalition would respond with force. We call it the Mutual Defense Alliance, Helen explained. Every member has equal voice in our assembly. But unlike the Council, we don't need consensus to act. A simple majority vote can authorize military action. What about small conflicts? One representative asked. Internal disputes between members? We'll have mediators and diplomatic solutions, Margaret explained. But if diplomacy fails and one member attacks another, the aggressor faces the full military power of the alliance. No exceptions. Ambassador Kell stood up. And if a non-member commits genocide like the Krell did? We intervene, Helen said simply. Member or not, we will not allow another Sigma 7 to happen on our watch. The vote was unanimous. The Mutual Defense Alliance was formed. The Galactic Council's reaction was predictable. They condemned the new alliance as a rogue organization. They warned that it would destabilize the galaxy. They threatened consequences, but half the species in the galaxy were paying attention to what the new alliance could do, not what the Council said it couldn't. Admiral Claire was appointed as the alliance's first military commander. She immediately began integrating the various species' forces, training them in human combat tactics. No more civilized warfare, she told the Allied officers. We fight to win. General Nathan oversaw the construction of a combined fleet. Ships from 23 different species, all working together under unified command. It was the largest military force in the galaxy. And everyone knew what it was capable of. 6 months after the formation of the Alliance, the first test came. A species called the Draxan Empire invaded one of the smaller Alliance members, the Kelmer people. The Draxans assumed the Alliance was all talk. That humanity's actions against the Krell had been a one-time thing, they were wrong. The Alliance fleet deployed within 48 hours. Admiral Clare commanded the operation personally. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Draxan fleet was completely destroyed. Unlike with the Krell, the Alliance accepted the Draxan surrender. But the terms were harsh. The Draxans had to pay reparations, surrender their military leadership for trial, and accept Alliance monitoring of their military forces for 10 years. The Draxan Emperor protested to the Galactic Council. "This is illegal. The Alliance has no authority to impose these terms." The Council agreed but could do nothing. They had no military force to challenge the Alliance. They could only watch as the Draxans accepted the terms. The message was clear. The Alliance enforced its own authority. Over the next year, 3 more conflicts erupted. Each time, the Alliance responded swiftly and decisively. Aggressors were punished. Victims were protected. The galaxy learned that the Alliance meant what it said. Species began leaving the Galactic Council in droves. Some joined the Alliance. Others remained neutral but quietly supported it. The Council shrank from 73 members to 41, then to 20-8. President Helen met with Admiral Clare and General Nathan to discuss the situation. "The Council is dying," Helen observed. "Good," Clare said. "It was useless anyway." "Some species still believe in it," Nathan pointed out. "They think the old ways can be reformed." "Let them try," Helen said. "Competition is healthy. Maybe having an alternative will force the Council to actually do something useful." But privately, Helen knew the Council was finished. It represented an old idea, one where words and laws could maintain peace without the will to enforce them.